This is a CZ 457 Scout model. I have plans for this gun. Number one, from the factory, it's a beechwood stock. Beechwood is not a pretty wood, I don't think. It's this one is stained with a walnut stain, and there's a couple things I don't like about this stock. For one thing, I will be staining it red. Now that might sound horrible, but I got my inspiration from Uberti 1873 rifle that's got a reddish stock that I think is just really beautiful. There's things, the reason I'm going to change the color, that I'm going to stain it, is because I need to do some work on this stock as it is anyway. Let me point a few things out. This area, this is called a flute, and this being a right-handed rifle, the bolt handle's on the right-hand side. It's meant for a right-handed person. They have the flute, which gives you like some clearance for the heavy part of your hand, your palm, below the thumb. Well, CZ and cutting corners and I guess keeping the cost down on this rifle decided that they would only put a flute on one side of the stock. To me, that's like, come on. And personally, the design of that flute doesn't thrill me. There's right here where it blends into this pistol grip area, there's a bump. Don't like that. My plans are several. I'm definitely going to detail and clean up this flute, sharpen that line, probably make it a little more straight, definitely get that bump out. Also, the point of the comb here, to me that's too gentle, too sloping of a curve. I'm going to make it more vertical, cut some of this area out, and the pistol grip area, in my opinion, is just bleh. It's bland, it's no detail. This area here is definitely weak, no detail. I'll show you an old shotgun stock in a moment that is the detail I want to put in here. I've got the shotgun, which is an Ithaca Model 37, made in 1944. If you've got a 37 and you're interested in its born on date, the Ithaca website has a great page that, referencing by serial number, you can tell exactly what year it was made. This detail right here, where it's a nice sharp little line, that's what I want to, something along that line I want to duplicate here. I want to flatten this area a little bit and move it back probably about 3/16 of an inch and put an ebony pistol grip cap here. While we're at this end of the buttstock, this is a youth model rifle. So the length of pull, the dimension from the middle of the trigger to the middle of the butt pad, the end of the stock, is your length of pull. This stock being a youth model, I believe it's a 12.5. Yeah, it's about 12.5, 12 3/8. I can deal with that. I'm a short person. I don't mind a length of pull that small, but I'd prefer it a little longer. Being that the stock is going to be stained a reddish color, I thought a red recoil pad would really set it off, would sort of fit with it. Now, it's a .22 long rifle caliber. It doesn't need a recoil pad for the recoil. Any of you that shoot know that. But to add, well, you figure this is about a 1/4 inch. This butt plate is about a 1/4 inch. And if I take a 1-inch recoil pad and fit it to the end of the buttstock, I will have increased the length of pull by 3/4 of an inch. So it'll be 13 1/4 when I'm done, which is a little more. Common length of pull on a lot of stock rifles is in the 14-ish inch range, so I'll be getting close. I think though this pad will look great with the red finish stock, and the pad is a. Let's zoom in on her a little bit. A Galazan. Never used a Galazan brand pad before. I've fit many recoil pads in my life. Usually I use Pachmayrs. The bad thing about this, I mean, don't worry about that flash. That'll all be ground off when I fit it to this stock. But the bad thing about it is if I take a scale here, what you might call a ruler, and put it up against the base of the pad. I know you can't hardly see it in the video, but it's not perfectly flat. So therefore, when you fit it to the buttstock, there will probably be gaps there, which is unsightly, which is unprofessional. So the first thing I will do in my pad installation will be to disc the mating surface of the pad flat so that it will fit nice and tight to the end of the buttstock once the butt pad is removed. So that's what we're going to do down here. I will be videotaping that, and I hope I do a good enough job that I can upload it to YouTube and you can see what I do and you can hopefully learn from it and do your own. Okay. One thing that's not really visible here, but I can definitely feel it, this isn't a flat surface. If we take our scale and put it up against the top surface of the buttstock, it's pretty darn flat. It's pretty darn straight. Okay? If we put it here, you can see it rocking. There's a high spot, definite high spot right around here. What I will be doing will be starting on that high spot with a rasp, a wood rasp, and flattening this whole area. So I'll get that bump out. When I put a scale up against it, it will be like the top of the stock, it'll be flat. That's important for me. That might not be important. It's surely not important for the CZ factory, and probably 90% plus of owners would never even notice it. But it goes against my sensibilities. Sights. Let's get into that a little bit. The rear sight on this gun is actually pretty nice. I've shot this gun once just as a reference. I want to see how it shot before I did anything to it. So let's zoom in on that rear sight a bit. Nice sight. The thing I don't like about it is this base is plastic. Now, I think it's a decent plastic. It's probably a composite, but the rear sight blade is steel, metal of some type. I'm assuming steel. This is going in a bag somewhere. I'm taking it off. It shot well. I only was able to shoot it at an indoor range. It was pretty chilly. Didn't really want to hang out in the cold. So it was only at 50 feet, but it shot well. What I'm going to replace that rear sight with is this. This is a Skinner Aperture sight. Probably better known as a Peep Sight. People call them Peep Sights. It's very, very well done sight, the Skinner sight. There's your peep. This fits right on the factory dovetail up here on the receiver of the rifle. In fact, I'll slide it on there. You can see what it's going to look like when it's fit. Truly, there's no fitting to be involved to be done. It fits right on there as it is. It just, you have to tighten the screw. I did shoot it when I went out to shoot the gun the first time. I used both the factory sight and I used the Skinner Aperture sight. It shot well with either. I will remove the factory sight just for looks, really. It's sort of in the way when you have the Aperture sight on there. And actually, I already did remove it. If you have one of these, or probably any CZ with a rear sight along the lines of this one, if you remove it, they had a thread locker on there, pretty heavy duty thread locker. I did not have to put any heat on it. I had to use a nice tight fitting screwdriver and just unscrew it. And of course, the thread locker that they had served two purposes. It helped keep that sight base affixed to the rifle barrel itself. So once I got the screws out, I just had to give it a little tap and it came right off. Now there was thread locker all over the barrel under the sight base, and I had to use a heat gun to loosen that up and a piece of wood to scrape it off. I did not want to scratch the bluing on it, the finish on the metal, which I did not. Of course, now when you remove that sight, you've got two holes in your barrel. And realizing this, when I ordered the Skinner sight, I spoke with the man I ordered it from and told him I wanted plug screws for the barrel, and we both thought it was probably 6/48 screws, a number 6 by 48 threads per inch, which is a very standard sight screw on guns, on all guns. More modern, but I mean basically many guns. So we both thought that would fit well. Being that CZ is made in Czechoslovakia, maybe we both should have thought about that a little bit. When I took the sight off and went to fit the plug screws, they would not fit. So I measured them with a screw checker, metric screw checker, and they ended up being 3.5 by 0.6 metric screw thread. So I've got to source some of those or make some or something to plug those holes. But that's neither here nor there right now. So like I told you, I'm going to fit an ebony grip cap here. And I'm also going to fit an ebony fore-end tip. I will probably cut this back about, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 1 3/4. Just slice that off, disc it flat, and with a piece of ebony wood, fit it to the rifle, following the contour. I might change the contour a little bit at the front of the cap. I'm thinking maybe the tip, maybe I'll go straight up. I've done that on other rifle stocks and I've liked it. Instead of rounding this off, it would have a nice straight edge. So it would meet the barrel perpendicular instead of being curved like this. We'll see when I get to that point. Okay, so up the barrel from the fore-end tip, we come to the end of the barrel. And from the factory, this barrel is threaded for a suppressor, a sound suppressor. This is a thread protector. There are threads under that protector. There are 1/2 inch by 28 threads per inch. That's your standard thread for suppressors and flash hiders. Well, personally, I don't like this thread protector. I don't have a suppressor. Sort of wish I had one, but I don't really feel like paying the government $200 tax so that I can have a suppressed firearm. for each suppressor you have, by the way. Sorry, I can deal with it. So anyway, not liking this thread protector, I decided I would make a flash hider. Actually, I looked for flash hiders online, and there were some beautiful designs, but they were all too big for my tastes. This is too big for my taste. It comes away from the barrel. The diameter of this thread protector versus the diameter of the barrel, to me, is too big a jump. I don't like it. So I figured I could make one on a lathe. Actually, what I did was, my real job is a CAD guy, computer-aided drafting and design, and what I did was make a 3D model of what I wanted the flash hider to look like, and I printed it out on a 3D printer. And that is the 3D printed model of the flash hider I was considering making. Well, it doesn't look quite like that now that I've made it, but that is the flash hider in aluminum. I turned it from aluminum for a couple reasons. Number one is I don't have a bluing tank anymore. I used to have bluing tanks. I used to do gunsmithing. Plus, these slots. Okay, obviously I turned the whole piece down on a lathe and threaded it with a tap. But these slots, I do have a mill, but the mill is like buried behind all kinds of stuff. I didn't want to deal with digging the mill out and setting her up. So I basically cut these in. It was sort of a Mickey Mouse method, but a lot of it was by hand, cleaning them up by hand. It would have been a whole lot more difficult to do out of steel than it was aluminum. So one of the reasons I used aluminum. Now the bad thing is the finish I currently have on here is just paint, just a spray bomb. I know you can anodize aluminum. I'm not set up to anodize aluminum, nor probably will I ever be set up to anodize aluminum. I could send it out, I'm sure. I don't know what that would cost. I do have a co-worker that has, he powder coats motorcycle parts. And I think he'd probably do powder coat this thing for me for a pretty reasonable price. So I'll probably check into that. So that will go on the end of the barrel, threads right on. One thing I want to say while we're at this stage of the game, all the things you will see me do on this CZ firearm here are basically for educational purposes only. Like I said, I used to be a gunsmith. I used to be a federally licensed firearms dealer. I no longer am. It is not legal for me to have your gun in my home overnight. So these videos are for educational purposes only. You cannot send your firearm to me and say, would you please do what you did on your CZ? Can't do that. I am allowed to have somebody's firearm over here to work on as long as it doesn't stay overnight. So if you'd come over and I fit a sight to it or fit a recoil pad and we were hanging around and talking, that's fine. But to have it in my home overnight, sorry, can't do it. So hopefully you'll be inspired by the videos that I create when I call it sweetening up this stock, and maybe you'll want to get a rasp in your hand and have at it on one of your own stocks. So for now, that's about it, and I'm going to set up here pretty soon and start making some wood chips, and I will be videotaping that, and hopefully I'll have that ready before too long, and hopefully you come back and check them out and enjoy them. Thank you.